uncomfortably.
Yeah.
I'm sitting with Melissa here in the Huntsville prison cemetery. But that's not what's making me uncomfortable. It's this.
So we are sitting where they would have the services before they laid them in the ground. And I'm sitting where the casket would sit.
Oh, she's crazy.
Heidi's on the bench. Heidi has a real uncomfortable feeling in here. I don't.
I'm not liking it. It's a bad energy. But for y'all, here I am. Ta-da!
So we do have a reason for being out here. We're in hunt for quite a few, maybe like a handful of people who were not good in society.
Infamous serial killers, if you want to put it that way.
Serial killers. So we're going to educate you a little bit on how they became imprisoned and how they ended up here in the state penitentiary cemetery. So step into the destination with us. I don't like that at all. So here lies Lee Smith. We don't know too much about him. We don't know why he was imprisoned. We don't know if it was for life. We don't know if he was imprisoned for execution by the state. We do know that he is well known and well praised to be a rodeo clown within the prison system. Their dedication is for the rodeo pals. And here lies Lee Smith. And he died because, hold on, he was murdered. We do know that.
Yes.
He was murdered in prison for stealing someone's commissary. So.
Hell of a way to go, huh? You're already in prison. She's all like friends with him. Sup, Henry?
Okay. So we did find Henry Lee Lucas. It's a puzzle trying to figure out where these, I would say gentlemen, but there are some women buried out here as well. But in the early 1800s, is that what you saw?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think they don't bury them here anymore. They're
No,
buried
they do.
The women, they do not.
No, not the women, but they do still do burials here.
I don't know if y'all know much about Henry Lee Lucas, but he was convicted in 1983 for the murder of his mother and two other women. I think they were related or roommates or cousins, or weren't they in the same house?
They were in the same house. I don't know if there was an actual relation, like blood relative.
Maybe they were just there at the wrong time.
Apparently so.
But the reason why Henry became so famous is because at that time there was a slew of unsolved murders.
Spanning 23 years.
Yes. And so he claimed a lot of these murders of these people up and down the highways between Texas and Michigan. So much so that the investigators included him in basically the detective work.
Yes. And they were Texas Rangers.
They were Texas Rangers.
That included him in that, and that's why his sentence went from life to, from death to life imprisonment. So,
and he did die in prison.
Of congestive heart failure. Yes. Shame.
So, very disturbed individual.
Disturbing looking. Why don't you guys look him up and see what he looks like? He had a wonky eye, and I read that it was an accident. His brother hit him with a ball in his eye, and it got infected. And then they had to take the eye out, and then he had a glass eye. Mm-hmm. But he's
I don't think that he had a great childhood.
He had a very horrible
mentally,
childhood. Very abusive.
Really, it was very abusive. Mentally, he was not stable.
No.
So,
but he confessed to all those murders, and a lot of them they have disproved because he couldn't have been in two places at the same
correct.
time. But he
was doing it for not only the fame, but it was also kind of putting off the time for him to be
alive,
sentenced,
right,
for the deaths of
right.
his mother
Absolutely.
and the two other women.
Absolutely.
I mean,
he later recanted and said it was just a joke, and the only one he confessed to was his mother, but evidence shows otherwise, and he was
Henry Lee Lucas, the Confession Killer, a murderer best known for allegedly killing hundreds of people in the 60s and 70s. Born to alcoholic parents, including a mother who prostituted herself, Lucas's sexual deviancy formed in his teen years. And in 1960, he was sentenced for the murder of his mother. Paroled in 1970, Lucas went back to jail for attempted kidnapping of a 15-year-old girl. Released again in 1975, he killed 2 more women and arrested in 1983. Lucas sat on death row, later changed to life in prison for assisting the Texas Rangers in unsolved murders, which he claimed he had committed. He confessed to murdering hundreds of people, though no proof existed beyond 3 known victims. Henry Lee Lucas died in a Texas prison from natural causes in 2001.
So after searching, we found Kenneth McDuff, which is another serial killer, actually from the late 60s, and then the late 90s?
yeah.
And then the late 90s.
No, early 80s because he died.
Oh, that's true. She's right. It was the 80s. So in 1966, Kenneth McDuff was known as the Broomstick Killer, and
He came up on a baseball field, and there was a car with a
It was in
girl
the
and
80s.
2 guys living in the, hanging out, and they made him get in the trunk. He had an accomplice. Kenneth had an accomplice,
Green.
and they shot both men in the head. They took him to a deserted place, shot both men in the head. They raped the
the
girl,
women.
both of them, and then they beat her. They strangled her with a broomstick, which is why he's known as the Broomstick Killer. The 2 men and the woman were killed in like 66 or 68. I just read it. I'm sorry, I can't remember right now. It's 5,000 degrees. He was then let out of prison in 72 because of the overcrowding here in Texas, and then he killed some more and was convicted again. It does not say it was a family member. He just went on to kill more people. He was then again arrested, convicted, and put to death.
Yes, in November 17th of 1998. And he as well was not a stable individual.
No.
His accomplice, Green, in the 60s,
Yeah.
did say that basically any woman he saw, he wanted to abduct, rape, and murder.
His word was take. I could take her. So.
And the Broomstick Killers, because he did take their lives by touching them with broomstick. Correct?
That is correct. It's a horrible way to go.
Kenneth Allen McDuff, known as the Broomstick Killer. McDuff's criminal record began 2 years before his first murder conviction in 1964. At age 18, McDuff was convicted of burglary and attempted burglary in 3 Texas counties, sentenced to 12 4-year prison terms. But due to overcrowding, he was paroled in 1965. In 1966, McDuff and an accomplice were looking for a girl. They spotted 3 teenagers, 2 male, 1 female, standing beside their parked car on a baseball field. McDuff threatened the trio with his revolver, ordering them into the trunk of their car. They drove along a highway and into a field. McDuff took the girl out of the trunk and placed her into the trunk of his own car. McDuff then shot 6 shots into the victim's trunk, killing the 2 males. After being tortured and raped, McDuff used a broomstick to strangle the girl to death, then dumping her body. McDuff was arrested and received the death sentence. McDuff's death sentence was lessened to a life sentence after hiring a lawyer. He was released after 13 years. From 1989 to 1992, Mcduff tortured many young women and was convicted on capital murder in 1992. He was sentenced to death and was executed in 1998.
This is Chief Santana. He was from the Kaiowa tribe. And we don't know why he was here. We do not know why he was in prison. He did commit suicide while he was in prison. And he was buried here and stayed almost 100 years. And then he was exhumed and given a proper chief's burial in Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Yeah, so in 1878 he took his own life.
He did.
And then in 1963 they exhumed him back to probably his homeland.
Yes. They
His
took him
native
back
land.
and they did a whole ceremony there. So I'm going to guess that that's where the tribe was from.
It'd be interesting to see if we could actually find his location in Oklahoma.
That would be very interesting. I'll do some research into that and see what I can find out. But as of this moment, that's what I got to tell you guys.
Chief Satyanta of the Kaiowa tribe, one of the first Native American leaders to be tried for U.S. raids. Satyanta was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. He was freed after only 2 years, and soon after his release, Satyanta was involved in attacking buffalo hunters. The government called for his arrest. He surrendered in October of 1874 and was returned to prison. Satyanta saw no hope of escape. He became sullen and broken in spirit and would be seen for hours gazing through prison bars towards the north, the hunting grounds of his people. In the end, deciding not to spend the rest of his life in prison, Satyanta killed himself on October 11, 1878, by diving headlong from a high window of the prison hospital. Satyanta was originally buried in the prison cemetery. In 1963, his grandson received permission to transfer his remains to Fort Sill in Oklahoma. October 2000, Satyanta's shield, bow, case, and arrows were returned to Fort Sill and dedicated by a ceremony that included the Fort Sill commander and Kiowan Armed Service veterans.